Well, hello everybody and welcome back to Gourmet Tricks and Treats. No cooking today. We're going to look at some cookbooks, some interesting cookbooks in fact. And my journey here started reading Elizabeth David, and I was reading a section on puddings, and she said that she thought that the UK had more pudding recipes that included breadcrumbs than any other country in the world. And in order to justify this, she cited the Yorkshire Women's Institute recipe book. And this set me off in hot pursuit. And in fact, I found the 1957 edition, the original edition, and the later edition, 10 years later. And then there's the Jubilee edition, which comes later on. And this set me off on a very interesting exercise, looking at domestic practices and also in a bit of a personal journey around Yorkshire for me. So in the 1957 edition, the original edition, then there are lots of traditional recipes, there are home cures, there are remedies, and there are household hints and tips, as you might imagine. Come the 1960 edition, they drop the traditional recipes in favour of deep freeze recipes, and then they substitute some traditional recipes for savoury offal dishes. Which I'm not sure is a good substitute. And then in the 1970 Jubilee edition, they put in entertaining, foreign food, modern living, and in the modern living section we have a section on fast food. We do still have household hints and tips, and I'm sure you'll be very pleased to know that if you want to lengthen the life of a child's pullover, then you unpick each sleeve and just swap them over from time to time, and this will add longevity to the pullover. They also tell us in the cookery section that if you want to crisp up lettuce leaves, then you add a lump of coal to the water. I'm not suggesting you do that, but it's a suggestion in this book. Under the salves and cough cures, we get some rather hair-raising remedies, which I don't suggest you try at home. But if you happen to have a sore throat, you're meant to gargle 6 times a day with mulberry syrup mixed with elixir of vitriol, which turns out to be concentrated sulfuric acid, which you may know is mostly used in fertilizers, and it creates an exothermic reaction, so probably causing heat in the throat. If you happen to have lumbago, you were meant to mix together red lavender oil, turpentine, laudanum, which is tincture of opium, sweet nitra, which is potassium nitrate, and I read that this is mostly used for removing tree stumps, and it's included in rocket fuel and fireworks, and you were to take 10 drops with soft sugar twice a day. If you had a cough, this is not too bad, linseed oil, treacle and lemon, and you had to add to it a ½ inch of Spanish. Now that sent me off back to my childhood, because it won't mean anything to anybody who didn't come from the area of Yorkshire that I came from. But Pontefract, near where I lived, is the only place in England where the licorice plant will grow. And as kids, we used to be able to get the licorice roots for a penny a twig, and we'd spend all day chewing on the twig, the licorice root, which we call Spanish. There are traditional recipes. Brandy snap is a favourite traditional Yorkshire recipe, which comes from the fairground tradition. And also I tried the spice bread, sometimes called in these books the taproom loaf. And this was bread and cake really that was given away in the pubs in Yorkshire at Christmas time. And as a boy, I played in the local colliery band, and every Boxing Day we would travel around the streets of our village playing in the pubs and in the clubs, and we were given cake. So the moment I made this spice bread, I instantly recognised what it was. Bonfire night, of course, there's a recipe for Yorkshire parkin, which you'd expect, and toffee apples. Endless recipes for Yorkshire puddings, and it seems that even in Yorkshire no one can decide what the right recipe is, but it seems that the less fat you put in it, the bigger Yorkshire pudding you will have. Some odd titles of recipes, and I kid you not, but in the Jubilee edition on page 67 we're encouraged to make Mincy fairy cakes. Now, I suppose we might know somebody who would appreciate a Mincy fairy cake, but there you go. Each of these editions is an introduction by Mrs. Udale, who's the president of the Yorkshire WI, and she finishes off her interview in the Yorkshire Post with Michael Smith, an old friend of mine, a journalist and cookery writer from Yorkshire. And he is asking her if she feels that women's institutes could in any way counteract the fast accelerated loss of English regional cooking. And Mrs. Udale replies, "I'm afraid even WI members have become interested in foreign cookery, having gone abroad and more tasted foreign dishes. And then you see," she goes on to say, "a lot of them make their own wine and are anxious to find recipes where they can use it. Although personally, I would be a bit chary about cooking with Mrs. Somebody or other's bottle of parsnip wine." So there you are. That's my latest obsession, Yorkshire WI Cookery Books. See you next time.